Hello, everybody. It's your boy, Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming here today. The thing with Xenoblade 3, right, is that it's fundamentally different in terms of how it tells and relays its story to the player compared to 1 and 2. I'm going to leave X out of the discussion because that's kind of like a separate entity in my opinion. But with 1 and 2, they're at least connected in the canonically same universe, or at least timeline, right? But with 1 and 2, in each individual game, they're kind of self-contained. You don't need the information from the other to make that game make sense and feel like it's telling a complete, satisfactory story or experience. You don't need that with 3 either, but it's slightly different. With 1 and 2, right? Like, beginning, middle, end. You have questions that are raised, you get development on those questions, and you get answers to said questions. But with 3, it's a little bit different, because not everything actually adds up in Xenoblade 3. A lot does, don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying this as a critique or a bad thing about Xenoblade 3, it's just, it's different and it raises questions. And because the story raises questions, it fires up those theory crafting cylinders that are in the back of my brain. Like, you know, Osmosis Jones just back there, like, stamping on the freaking dopamine button, saying, go, 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 let's do this. And the thing about Xenoblade 3's story that doesn't add up is a couple of things. There's a few key questions that I have, and I'm not going to be able to answer or question all of them in this video. So there's going to be a little bit of a mini-series if you feel me. But this part, I want to talk about Noah as a character, because I talked about why I liked him as a character a couple days ago. But today I want to talk about what doesn't add up with Noah. Once I start to put all these pieces together, it's becoming a little clear to me that, hey, there's something that might be a little bit deeper in terms of Noah. Because I feel like a lot of the questions for Xenoblade 3 either come from one of 2 characters. The character of Noah or the character of Riku. This video I want to talk about Noah. Why is he Kevis? No, seriously, think about it. Why is he Kevis? Because if I showed you the character designs and the kits for all these characters, and I said, you have to match this character to Kevis or Agnes, and you didn't have any knowledge or context from the game itself outside of the ability names and the appearance, I guarantee you more people would put Noah in Agnes than Kevis. You may be asking, well, he doesn't have a core crystal, so you go in Kevis, right? Maybe that's the case. But when you look at his kit, and not talking about the Sword Master kit, right? Like his basic class, I'm talking about the Sword of Origin, and I'm talking about Lucky 7. Lucky 7 will get its own video, don't get me wrong, but I want to talk about the abilities of Lucky 7, the abilities he gets with the Sword of Origin. Because when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, this dude's Jin. That's the first thing I thought of, like, oh, he has some influence for some reason from the character of Jin from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Because that dude's kit, very similar to Jin's. He has that one spell where he, forms a giant circle, you know, that one, anime pose every, sword user in anime has to do, where they form, a half-moon shape with the sword, and you can, see its afterimage and that kind of stuff. He has that ability. He has Tachyon Slash. He has multiple abilities, where it's like, you know what? If it was just one, right, or if it's just the name of an ability, I'm like, okay, maybe it's just a funny little reference. When it's, pretty much the entire kid, I'm just, raising questions, wait a minute. Something ain't right here. And then, it's not just that, right? I noticed this way before we could ever use Lucky 7 as the sword. I noticed it in, the first cutscene where he unsheathed it. Lucky 7 looks like Jin's sword. Compared to all the other swords in this game, it looks like Jin's sword. And that intrigued me. I'm like, wait a minute, Kevis is supposed to be from the world of the Bionis, and I'll just call, the world of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, even that entire universe, as the Bionis. From here on out, it'll just be easier. And I'll do the same thing with Xenoblade 2, calling it Allrest, okay? In Bionis, Jin wasn't there, right? He's a being of Allrest. He was a blade. He should be Agnes. But Noah is Kevis. But is he? There's a few other things, and this is something that someone in my comments mentioned, and it really stuck with me, because it's a really interesting observation. And this goes to the character of N, who is also known as Noah. But with N in particular, his sword looks fundamentally different to our Noah's, right? It's darker, it looks more Malos-like, right? Even N, irradiates this dark aura we kind of know and come to expect from a character like Malos. Now, maybe it's a reference to the Black Fog of Xenoblade 3, and future connected, like, that's a possibility. So I'm not going to say, like, this point in particular is, like, anything of, like, a linchpin or anything like that. I'm just saying, when you take it in consideration with the other information that we have with Noah and his sword and his kit, and how they all kind of feel like they're stemming from Allrest instead of the Bionis, questions are raised. My curiosity becomes piqued. But it's not just that, because there was an observation that I had that I'm like, wait a minute, stuff is really starting to piece together, right? Because obviously, each of these individual points that I'm making is kind of like loose, right? It's like, okay, come on, it's a bit of a stretch, don't you think? And like, if you take any of these pieces by themselves, absolutely. It can be just sheer coincidence. Maybe they just want to make a funny reference to Jin and had nowhere else to put them. Maybe that's the case. But then you get the ending of Xenoblade 3. Remember, in Xenoblade 3, you have those bookend cutscenes, where it's Noah, Uni, Lance, and Yurin, back in the original universe of the Bionis. They're in that world. At the very beginning, in that first cutscene, when Origin activates, and then Ionios happens, and then at the very end, after Origin finalizes, sends the universes off on their way, and they're back in the original world. Noah is in Bionis, so we know that Noah as a character comes from the Bionis world, right? We know that. But remember the ending. Because the ending, I always thought up to this point that the ending of Xenoblade 3 was hinting that, hey, maybe there's still some connection between the Bionis and Allrest after all. And maybe that plotline will be explored in either the DLC or like Xenoblade 4. That's what I thought it was. There's another potential interpretation there, though. Who hears the Agnian off-scene tune at the very end, in that final cutscene? It's only Noah. That we see, at least. It's only Noah. And he walks towards it. Then you get a bunch of freaking birds that fly across the screen, and then Noah disappears. Literally. He's gone. He's no longer there. Noah just disappears. I interpreted it. I don't think that's just there for, like, a metaphor. To be like a metaphor, right? Like, oh, he's gonna go chase after the meal thing. No, I think the dude literally just teleported somewhere. Now, I don't know where. I don't know if that will be picked up in Xenoblade 3's DLC, even though I think it's gonna be the Founders, or if there'll be a plot line that'll be explored later down the line in Xenoblade 4, which I think is the most likely point. I don't think we'll get a lot of the questions of Noah that I'm raising right now until Xenoblade 4. But he does disappear. So, there is a potential route they could explore where Noah was actually from the world of Allrest. And for some reason, before Origin activated, he was brought over to the world of Keves and was born. Maybe after Origin activates and he goes back to Keves, we assume Origin has completed its use. We assume Origin had fully finalized its procedure, its algorithm. What if Noah was the final piece of the puzzle, and Origin, at that final cutscene, was sending Noah back to where he belonged in Allrest? I think that's out there. I don't think it's likely, but it's pretty interesting to think about, right? Like, that's just one potential interpretation of what that final cutscene could be. There are so many others. And that's one of the things that makes endings like that so intriguing and so fascinating from a theory crafting perspective. Because it raises these questions where it still feels satisfying. But the thing with that ending is, there are so many different ways that you can take that one ending and explore on those themes and motifs that were presented in 3 or in the other Xenoblade games. You can really just go wild with it. There are so many different avenues you can go. I only presented one possible route, one possible future. We don't know what future they're going to take going into the future. We don't know if there'll be a Xenoblade Chronicles 4 that follows up on this story at all. We don't know that. But if there is, and they want to do a follow-up to this story, I think they will. That could be a really interesting avenue to explore. But there's a bunch of... Oh, sorry, I just bashed my mic. There's a bunch of other very interesting ways they can go with that ending. And that's one of the things that makes me so excited for a game like Xenoblade Chronicles 4. The possibilities are near endless. Because it could also be... Now, bear this in mind. It could also be that the reason he had Jin's kit, the reason we had the Sword of Origin and Lucky 7 with Jin's abilities, is that for some reason, somehow, maybe through Origin, Jin or Malos, probably Jin though, more likely than not, and like Noah's information or soul became intertwined in some capacity. For some reason. That could be another like interesting route it can go. Because what if Origin wasn't flawless? What if there was a glitch, a flaw, a defect, if you will? Because think of what we're dealing with here, right? Taking all of the information in the world, reducing it to just light information, preserving it, combining that with another construction in a completely different universe, combining all that information when the worlds get rejoined and destroyed, and then essentially creating two new universes and sending them both on their ways. There are so many different areas where a mess up, a flaw could be inserted into there, a glitch. Because it's not like they did a test run for this thing, right? Right? Or did they? That's another way they could go. There are so many stories that they can really go with here. And that's one of the things that really intrigues me with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, because it tells a complete story from beginning to end, with a powerful theme and a powerful message, with interesting characters that are well developed and well executed on, that we grow to care about. But it leaves these little strands at points where it's like, oh, wait a minute, you don't need this little plot line to be wrapped up for the whole story for the game to feel satisfying or conclusive. You don't need this to. But if this gets picked up, look at that! Look at the plot thread! Look at that plot thread over there, flowing in the wind and the breeze, if you catch my drift. It could be a very interesting way to pick the story back up and to tie it in to the events of Xenoblade 3 in the future. But that's not all. And I'm going to cut the video here for the day, but next time, what the hell even is Lucky 7? Like, I know we kind of got a little bit of information, but really, I have like 5 main questions. Who the hell made it? Why the hell did they make it? Who the hell gave Riku it? Why does Riku know so much about it? And why the hell is it called Lucky 7? But we're going to talk about that next time. So I'm going to call the video there for the day. Again, this game raises so many interesting questions, and I want to theorize so much about them. I love theorizing. I love speculating. That scientist part of my brain. I love, like, piecing pieces of the puzzle together. I'm going to call the video there for the day. Leave a comment down below with your theories as to your theories, your thoughts on this potential plotline that they could tackle in like Xenoblade 4 or Xenoblade 3's DLC. Do you think it's just coincidence, like a little funny reference to Jin? We're gonna have some of his abilities with Noah. Do you think there's nothing there? Do you think it's just a fun little reference, or do you think there's something there, something to be explored, a plot thread to be picked up? And I want to hear your theories. No matter how crazy, no matter how unlikely they are, I want to hear your theories and read your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Thank you for tuning in. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe with everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.